The sound of expensive leather striking my daughter's cheek echoed through Blackwood Manor's dining room. Time seemed to freeze as Victoria's Hermes gloves fell beside the sterling silver soup spoons, her perfectly manicured hands still raised. "How dare you speak of things you don't understand, you little mongrel," Victoria seethed, her English accent thickening with rage. "Children should be seen, not heard. My daughter Lily, only 12 but with wisdom beyond her years, didn't cry. Instead, she touched the red mark blooming on her cheek and said clearly, 'I understand perfectly well that you were kissing Mr. Reynolds in the rose garden while Uncle James was at Father's funeral.'" The crystal glasses trembled as Victoria slammed her hands on the mahogany table. "You insolent." "That's enough." My voice cut through the tension like a blade through butter. "Touch my daughter again, Victoria, and you'll learn what it truly means to lose everything." "Lost everything." Victoria laughed, that practiced aristocratic titter she perfected since marrying my brother James. "Dear sister, I gained everything when I married into this family. This manor, the fortune, the social standing." "The affairs?" Lily asked innocently, making our elderly butler Hawthorne cough to hide his smile. "James," Victoria appealed to my brother, who sat frozen at the head of the table. "Are you going to let them speak to me this way, in my own house?" James finally looked up from his untouched soup, his face ashen. "Is it true, Victoria? At my father's funeral?" "Of course not." Victoria's voice rose an octave. "You can't possibly believe." "I have pictures," Lily announced, pulling out her phone. "Grandmother taught me about keeping evidence." Victoria's face, usually maintained in a mask of perfect composure, contorted with fury. "You little spy." "Actually," I interrupted, "Grandmother taught all of us about keeping evidence. Even you, Victoria, though you were too busy redecorating her rooms to listen." The dining room fell silent except for the ticking of the ancient grandfather clock, the one Victoria had tried to sell last month, claiming it didn't match her new aesthetic. "What are you talking about?" Victoria demanded. I reached into my bag and withdrew an envelope bearing the Blackwood family seal. "Grandmother's final letter. The one she instructed her lawyers to deliver after you showed your true colors." "I don't understand," James said quietly. "Let me illuminate things." I opened the letter. Grandmother knew about the affairs, Victoria. All of them. The gardener, the riding instructor, even the young vicar. She knew about the missing family heirlooms too. The ones that mysteriously appeared in auction houses across Europe. Victoria's perfect complexion went pale. "Those items were sold to renovate the manor." "They were sold to fund your shopping addiction," Lily corrected. "Grandmother showed me the receipts." "You lying little." Victoria started to rise again, but Hawthorne smoothly stepped between her and my daughter. "Perhaps, madam," he said coldly, "you should read the letter before making any more physical statements." I handed the letter to James, whose hands shook as he read aloud. "To my dear family, if this letter is being read, then Victoria has finally shown her true nature in front of witnesses, as I feared she would." Victoria sank back into her chair, her designer dress suddenly seeming like a cheap costume. "The Blackwood Manor," James continued reading, his voice growing stronger, "and all associated properties and accounts are hereby transferred to my great-granddaughter, Lily Jean, to be held in trust until her 21st birthday." "Impossible!" Victoria shrieked. "The manor is entailed to the male heir. That law changed 60 years ago." I smiled. "Something else you would have known if you'd attended the family history lessons instead of planning your next affair." But I've been managing the estate," Victoria sputtered. "Making decisions, planning renovations, selling heirlooms," Lily suggested. "Don't worry, Grandmother bought them all back. They're in the vault." Victoria turned to James, her mask cracking completely. "Darling, you can't let them do this to us." "To me, I'm your wife. And I'm your soon-to-be ex-husband," James replied, pulling out another envelope. "The divorce papers were filed this morning. The prenup you didn't read carefully enough has a morality clause." "You're joking." Victoria laughed desperately. "This is all some elaborate joke." "No joke," I said, standing. "Hawthorne, please show Mrs. Blackwood to the guest quarters. She can pack her things in the morning." "Guest quarters?" Victoria's voice rose to a screech. "I sleep in the master suite." "Not anymore," Lily said firmly. "That's my room now. Grandmother's orders." Victoria looked around wildly, seeking an alley and finding none. The other servants had already begun clearing her place setting, removing all traces of her presence from the family table. "You planned this," she accused me. "You and that little." "Choose your next words very carefully," I warned. "They might be your last ones in this house." As Hawthorne led a shell-shocked Victoria away, her designer heels clicking on the marble floors she'd insisted on installing over the historic wood, James turned to his niece. "Did grandmother really know everything?" he asked softly. Lily pulled out a leather-bound diary. She kept records of every scheme, every affair, every stolen piece. She was just waiting for the right moment to protect the family legacy. I touched the red mark on my daughter's cheek gently. Was it worth the slap? Lily smiled, looking remarkably like her great-grandmother. Some things are worth a little pain to protect what matters. And as Victoria's shrill protests faded up the grand staircase, the ancient grandfather clock she tried to sell chimed 9 times, marking the end of her reign and the beginning of a new chapter in the Blackwood legacy. Morning light streamed through the restored stained glass windows of Blackwood Manor's great hall, illuminating Victoria's collection of designer luggage stacked by the front door. The antique grandfather clock struck 9, and right on cue, car tires crunched on the gravel driveway. "The lawyers are here," Hawthorne announced, his usual stoic expression betraying a hint of satisfaction. Victoria descended the stairs like a tragic heroine, draped in what she probably thought was appropriately somber channel. "This is ridiculous. I demand to see the original deed." "Of course," I said, nodding to Lily, who was already pulling out grandmother's files, along with documentation of every missing heirloom you sold. "Those sales were authorized." "By whom?" James entered from his study, holding a stack of papers. "Because I never signed these supposed authorizations. The signatures are forged." Victoria's perfectly painted face faltered. "Darling, I did it for us." "You did it for yourself," Lily corrected, spreading out photographs across the antique table Victoria had once claimed was too old-fashioned. The villa in Monaco, the secret apartment in Paris, the offshore accounts. "You've been quite busy, Mrs. Blackwood," said Mr. Patterson, the family lawyer, walking in with his team. "Or should I say Ms. Reynolds, Ms. Collins, or Ms. Spencer? You've had quite a few names before landing on Blackwood." Victoria's hand flew to her throat, clutching her pearls, probably fake like everything else about her. "How did you?" "Grandmother had you investigated before you married Uncle James," Lily explained. "She kept every report, every document, every trace of your past cons. Including," I added, "the mysterious accidents that befell your previous husband's families when they got too close to the truth." The color drained from Victoria's face. "Those were coincidences. Like the brake failure on grandmother's car after she confronted you about the missing diamonds," James asked quietly. "The accident that put her in the hospital." "That wasn't. I never," Victoria stammered. "Fortunately," Mr. Patterson interjected, "your grandmother was as clever as she was cautious. She had her own mechanic inspect the car afterward. The evidence has been preserved." Victoria's eyes darted to the door, but 2 police officers had quietly entered behind the lawyers. Her perfectly manicured hands began to tremble. "The family vault has been opened," Lily continued, her voice steady despite Victoria's glare. "Everything you stole and sold has been documented. Every piece you claimed was lost in storage has been traced. The auction houses were quite cooperative," I added, "especially when presented with evidence of fraud." Victoria straightened her spine, trying to regain her aristocratic poise. "You can't prove anything." "Actually," James said, "we can prove everything, including your real identity, your previous marriages, and your connection to 3 other historic family estates that mysteriously lost their heirlooms. The police are particularly interested in what happened to the Brunswick family's youngest daughter," Mr. Patterson noted. "The one who caught you photographing their vault combination." Victoria's facade finally cracked. She fell down those stairs on her own. "Just like grandmother's accident was a coincidence?" Lily asked softly. The police officers moved forward as Victoria's admission hung in the air. She backed away, her designer heels catching on the carpet she'd insisted on importing from Persia. "James," she pleaded, "you can't let them do this. Think of the scandal." "The scandal," James replied, "of justice being served. I think the Blackwood name can survive that." As the officers began reading Victoria her rights, Lily opened grandmother's diary. Shall I read what grandmother wrote about you the day you tried to sell her mother's wedding rings? You little witch, Victoria snarled, lunging forward only to be caught by the officers. You're just like your grandmother, interfering old. Careful, I warned. Assaulting a minor in front of witnesses didn't work out well for you yesterday. Want to try for more charges today? Victoria fell silent as handcuffs clicked around her wrists, the sound echoing through the hall like the final note of a long-running symphony. The estate's security has been updated, Hawthorne announced with quiet satisfaction, and the Historical Society has been notified about the recovered artifacts. My lawyers will destroy you, Victoria threatened weakly. Your lawyers, Mr. Patterson smiled, are already cooperating with the investigation. It seems they prefer avoiding conspiracy charges. As Victoria was led away, her perfect world dismantling with each step, Lily picked up one of the discarded gloves that had struck her yesterday. Fake leather, she noted, like everything else about her. James watched his soon-to-be ex-wife being escorted to a police car. How long had grandmother known? From the beginning, I said. She wanted to see if Victoria would choose love over greed, family over fortune. Some people, Lily observed, sounding so much like her great-grandmother, can't see the true value of things. The grandfather clock chimed again, its ancient voice singing through halls now free from Victoria's influence. Blackwood Manor, like its legacy, would survive long after Victoria's brief reign was forgotten. 6 months later, Blackwood Manor hummed with authentic life again. The antique furniture Victoria had banished to the attic was restored to its rightful place, each piece telling a century of family stories. The verdict's in, James announced, walking into the morning room where Lily was studying the family ledgers. 15 years. Plus restitution to all the families she defrauded. The Brunswick girl testified. I asked, looking up from the estate accounts. All of them did. 5 families, 3 countries, 15 years of calculated deception. James loosened his tie. She cried when they showed grandmother's video testimony. Grandmother had known she might not live to see justice done. She'd recorded everything, every suspicion, every piece of evidence, ensuring her voice would be heard even after she was gone. The Historical Society is returning the last of the recovered pieces today, Lily said, checking her notebook. The Victorian music box she sold in Geneva finally cleared customs. Hawthorne appeared with a tea service, the original Blackwood silver, not the modern set Victoria had substituted. The newspapers are calling again. They're quite interested in the young heiress who exposed an international fraud ring. Let them wait, I smiled. We have more important things to restore than our public image. The manor's restoration was nearly complete. Victoria's gaudy modern touches had been removed, revealing the timeless elegance she tried to erase. Even the rose garden, where she conducted her illicit affairs, was blooming properly again. Her last appeal was denied, James added. She tried claiming temporary insanity. The only insane thing, Lily observed, was thinking she could fool grandmother. The morning sun caught the restored stained glass, casting rainbow patterns across the family portraits Victoria had planned to sell. Among them hung a new edition, grandmother's final photograph, taken the day she completed her investigation. The other families want to thank you, James told his niece. Especially the Brunswick girl. She's walking again, by the way. Lily touched her cheek, where Victoria's slap had long since faded. Some marks heal. Some lessons last forever. Speaking of lessons, I said, the Historical Society approved our proposal. Blackwood Manor will host educational tours about preservation and family legacy. Victoria's documented crimes will be part of the curriculum, James added with a grim smile. A lesson in how to spot wolves in designer clothing. Hawthorne appeared again. Miss Lily, the conservators are here about the music room restoration. The one Victoria turned into her personal shopping closet. Lily stood, straightening her grandmother's pendant. Time to bring the music back. As my daughter left to oversee another piece of our heritage being restored, James watched her with proud eyes. She's so much like mother. Same steel under silk. Victoria never understood that about this family, I noted. She saw the silk and thought it meant weakness. The grandfather clock chimed, the same rich tones that had marked time through wars, weddings, and now one more victory. In her cell, Victoria would be hearing different bells now. The family lawyers finished tracing her network, James said. 3 more estates have been returned to their rightful owners. And the Blackwood fortune? Safe. Every penny she tried to hide has been recovered. The charities mother wanted to support will be funded for generations. Lily returned with news. The music box is playing again. Listen. Through the halls of Blackwood Manor, a delicate melody drifted, the same lullaby grandmother had played for us as children. Victoria had tried to sell its music for profit, but some songs refused to be silenced. Mother would be proud, James said softly. The Manor's heart is beating again. It never stopped, Lily corrected, wise beyond her years. It was just waiting for the right time to be heard. And somewhere in a prison cell far from the luxury she'd stolen, Victoria was learning that some fortunes can't be taken, they have to be earned, one honest note at a time.